Hello everyone, I'm back for another gameplay. This time I'm playing Wydwen the Blighting Gale again. I've been enjoying playing her. I've had the deck on Moto for a little bit now, but I've been tweaking it a little bit, playing with a couple of flex slots that I have set aside. And I'm playing against Leovold, Emissary of Trest, bugwheels.deck, typically. Each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. If you or permanent you control becomes the target of a spell that an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So, pretty fantastic commander. It's also a 3/3 for 3 in one of the best tribes there is. So, yeah, I would say Elf is probably the best tribe there is. So, or at least for synergies. I have a incredibly mana dense hand, definitely going to ship that back. And I see turn 1 Duress, which is pretty spicy. It does fix their mana a little bit with Urborg, but this fixes mine as well. And I have Toxic Deluge for the early Leovold instead of a counterspell. This is also very good if it turns out that Leovold is the Elf Ball plus Wheel style deck, which sometimes you'll see. So I'm going to keep this hand. I see a Swamp. I'm going to push that. I think I pushed that to the bottom. I don't remember. I might have topped that. Yeah, I kept it on top. Okay. So I jumped through their hand real quick. I saw a Command Tower Island, Forest Island. So I fixed their black mana inadvertently, but they did have a black. But I gave them Sign and Blood on turn 2. They have Library of Lang on turn 1, no max hand size. If an effect would cause them to discard, they can put it on top instead. So good thing I hit Duress first. This is one of my only targeted discards, so I'm not really worried about Library of Lang after this. Temporal Cascade was my choice, so that way they can't have a safety valve at some point if they somehow manage to keep Leovold on table for a round. And I just wanted to never have to deal with this ever. Also, it's a pseudo mind twist if they just pay one version. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into the library. They can mind twist both players if they want. Library of Lang, not surprised. I'd play the island. Sign and Blood themselves. I pick up Ashiok. Well, Ashiok is an absolutely fantastic planeswalker if you watched my previous Wydwen video. So I'm going to pop out this exile here. Let me knock out Forest, Library, Sign and Blood. I knocked out Island. So I know about Island Command Tower still. And let me pop that out. Dark Deal, Siphon Mind, and Swamp. Well, that's fine. Leovold down, off double Forest. Must feel nice. And I make a little bit of a mistake here. I Ashiok targeting them, forgetting that Leovold triggers when they get targeted. And this isn't an opponent, or each opponent, because it actually has to target the opponent. So they get a card off Leovold here. And I was fully intending to use Toxic Deluge to kill Leovold this turn anyway. And I should have just done it first instead of second, because they could have drawn Force of Will or Daze off that one card. And that would have been bad for me. Thankfully they didn't, so it's alright. Cabal Coffers goes pretty good with my Urborg. Conveniently, they are short one color of mana, so they cannot play Leovold again this turn. Plead for Power. Starting with you, each player votes for time or knowledge. If time gets more votes, take an extra turn. If knowledge gets more votes, or the vote is tied, draw 3. I'd rather give them the draw 3. Honestly, it's about par for the mana. It's a little bit better, but it's sorcery speed, so I know they tapped out. They're could potentially be wasting 1 mana. There's no way I'm going to give them an extra turn, though, because then I could just be having to deal with Leovold again. Monocrypt into nothing. So they did waste 1 mana, and I assume they played this just to not have to discard, but then they realized that they didn't have to library because of Library of Lang, because they still have 8 cards in hand. They might have run this out in that assumption, because it makes no sense to play. I mean, if I try to make them discard it, Library of Lang, put it back on top. So I pick up a Swamp for that turn. So I'm fully intending to use Wydwen on end step. Oh, that's my Overwatch game. Battle.net forgot to sign out. Alright, so they run out Leovold again, and I'm totally fine with that. And I forget to play Wydwen. I don't know what I was so excited at that point. I just jumped through my end step and forgot to run out Wydwen. I wouldn't even minded if they had countered Wydwen, because I wanted to untap and play Sower. Cool. I'll have to get online after this. Alright. And and I run out the Sower, take the Leovold, give them a card. That's okay. I'm going to Ashiok some more cards from them, who has now hit 11. And this is what I'm talking about with Ashiok in a control shell. Ashiok attacks on one angle, their hand graveyard, as well as mill/pseudo-bribery. Whereas the rest of my deck attacks on a very different axis. It attacks on the commander damage or control axis. So both threats have to be dealt with, but they're very different threats. And this is sort of that idea of diversifying ways to win the game. Ashiok Ultimate will typically win the game because 9 cards in hand at this point, or even 5 cards in hand. Getting a full Mind Twist off Ashiok and then just continuing to tick it up more and more, getting more value, taking more and more amazing cards out of their deck, like their Jace, bunch of lands that they probably would have liked to have, Bring Geyser. Getting rid of those cards is fantastic. And also Magus of the Jar. And this tells me that it's not the best Leovold deck that it could be. Magus shouldn't be played in the deck. It's too slow. And Heartwood Storyteller. And these types of cards are absolutely fantastic to remove from my opponent's potential draw steps. Especially Heartwood Storyteller in my deck that's mostly non-creature spells. So Ashiok attacks on one angle of their hand, and they must answer it, otherwise they get Mind Twisted and they have to start playing off the top again. In the meantime, Wydwen is beating them down, or I have other threats on the table, like Vendilion Click, Wydwen. I'm planning on resolving Jace soon. So there's other things that they have to answer as well. And as long as Leovold's out, they can't play any of their mass draw to deal with Leovold, because I stole it. Which is a pretty spicy access. And if they target Leovold with anything, I get to draw more cards. Or they target Ashiok. So they go with Damnation. Alright, that's pretty good. I traded my Sower of Temptation for their Damnation and their Leovold cast at 5. That's fantastic. Bog me for my 3 cards. You got it, sir. Do you have a way to deal with Ashiok? No. Jace? Up? Sure, I'll take a card. Play a land, Ashiok your hand away. And let's take a look at this. Alright, Parader's Council. A card that basically says that he wins the game if it resolves. Brain Geyser we knew about. All this. So he had a lot of lands in hand, it looked like. Jwar Isle, Forest, 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 Evolving Wilds, Forest. Parader's Council. So not the best hand, but even taking away those draw steps is fantastic. And I assume they're taking Jace up to try to get it out of damage range. And I set this turn up because I want to deploy Wydwen and have protection for her. Cezanne, Perverter of Truth. Well, that is absolutely fine with me. I have a great answer to that. I'm going to cast Wydwen, untap, pick up more cards because of Cezanne's ability. I'd love to draw extra cards. I'll play Choke Destiny first because this could come into play tapped if I don't sandbag Island Swamps. I'm going to reveal this Sunken Hollow just because it doesn't matter. Might as well show them the duel in the basic. Less likely that I get wastelanded or stripped because they know I just have continuous value. Leave up exactly 3 mana after I cast Jace, and I'm going to Jace bounce this Cezanne because I got to draw 2 cards and they're going to draw none. And this is really the issue with these Howling Mind effects, is when you don't have something like Leovold in play to make these one-sided, they're objectively worse for you, because you're the last person that gets to take advantage of them. Now, if somehow Cezanne was flashed in before you untapped, he'd be fantastic, or if he had flash, but black cards don't get that ability without having access to other colors. So because I get to draw 2 cards, now I can just answer Cezanne, and my opponent spent 5 mana to eat one of my removals of some sort and give me 2 cards. Alright, you have successfully Sign and Blood me, and dealt 1 damage to Jace. For 5 mana. It's fine with me. So they're going to Jace up again, and I used a Wydwen to hit Jace down a little bit. I just wanted to keep Jace a bit under control for the time being. I'm going to flash in Vanilla Click, target myself, reveal nothing. I want to sandbag that Trinket Mage because I know what I'm going to go get with it. It also blocks Napmiser, so that means I can Jace bounce stays on again. So Jace bounce stays on, play Sol Ring, use Sol Ring and Island, play Trinket Mage, go get Needle, Needle Jace. Click is going to hit Jace just in case they have an answer to Needle, but this means I don't have to worry about killing Jace right away. I can start taking commander damage out of them. And that's really all this Needle play is. I'm so far ahead in card advantage, I just won the tempo play, so if they want to spend removal on a Pithing Needle instead of Jace, Ashiok, Vendilion Click, they're more than happy, welcome to. I hit Time Twister off that last Ashiok, so they know they're well and truly out of their best draw steps, and they can scoop the game. And at this point, I was fully confident that I was going to Vampiric Tutor, probably for Cyclonic Rift, and build Ashiok back up, Rift on end step, untap, and Ashiok ultimate their board away, was my plan at this point. And that would have been well and truly the game. What I could have done is gone and get the Sword of the Animist, which I've added to this deck, and equip Wydwen, increase her clock a little bit, and let's see, hit per 3, then it'd be 4, 4, 3, 18, 4, 16, 18 would be 6 turns. Yeah, so I would increase the clock by one hit, because it would be a 5-turn clock instead of a 6-turn clock if I vamped for Sword of the Animist, which would combine pretty well with Jace's Brainstorm, because it guarantees a shuffle every turn off the Sword of the Animist Rampant Growth when attacking. So I can get these lands out of my hand at that point. So that probably would have been my other potential vamp target if I didn't want to go for the Cyclonic Rift play. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's a nice quick one this time. I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video to anyone you think might enjoy this type of gameplay. Let me know in the comments down below what misplays I made if I haven't talked about them, or how you would have played the game differently. Always love hearing from you. I like interacting with you. It's a conversation about the format, and I'm happy to be able to continue producing this content for you. Alright, see you in the next one, guys.